Peace for Syria! Peace for Syria!
Vlastně chce poukázat na zvěrstva, které se dějí v Sýrii, cílené vyvražďování obyvatelstva a vlastně to je mírový pochod, protože Sýrie už potřebuje mír. Lidi po 6. roce války a zoufalství už potřebují mír a tohle je první největší, bych řekla, akce celonárodní, celosvětová, kdy civilní obyvatelé vyšli za civilní obyvatelstvo volat po míru.
Everybody is a person here, like in this world, and we understand that every nation has a chance for dignity and shouldn't be just like ignored by all the world population and community.
I would like to welcome you here at MeetFactory today. Today we have a panel discussion called How to Help Syria, or that is part of a civilian march for Aleppo. Thank you for that. At first, let me introduce our panelists. The first one is well-known Czech specialist, Mr. Pavel Gruber, Director of organization Médecins Sans Frontières, Czech Republic, Lékaři bez hranic. Mr. Gruber is going to start our discussion with a short description of the current humanitarian situation in Syria. But first, let me introduce our panelists. Mrs. Anna Both, a main coordinator of a civil march for Aleppo. Anna, thank you for being here. And then Mrs. Zora Hesova is going to come a bit later. She's a researcher at Association for International Affairs. Then we have another panelist just coming, young one.
I'm 1+.
And the last one is Mr. Haman Youssef, co-founder of Syrian Non-Violence Movement and member of the Syrian National Council. So welcome here, all of you. And finally, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Karolina Procházková. I'm from Czech TV. I'm a journalist. I was based last 10 years in Asia. I returned back to Prague, and now I'm covering foreign news, mostly news from Syria. So my first question is about the current situation, and I will give the floor to Mr. Hübner. So please, if you can describe us what is right now happening in Syria, what can we do for Syria, and of course, what is your organization doing? Thank you.
So, good evening. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for what you are doing. I must be very honest that the latest update our organization received is from 28th December. So I am not in the position to tell you what's happening there this week, last week. So even though I anticipate that most of you are very well aware of the situation, I think it may be useful to provide a brief back or contextual update what was the situation in Aleppo, because it's good to remember what the people went through. Actually, the siege, the blockade started end of July. Then there was a short period in August when the siege was broken. It was a moment when our organization and a few others, it was the last moment when we were able to deliver some medical supply to Aleppo. It was a convoy of 17 trucks with drugs and medical supply, and basically these were the supplies all running hospitals in Aleppo were using all autumn. Then from September until December, the whole population of East Aleppo was living under the siege, under the fierce bombardment, which was getting heavier and heavier. The medical care became nearly inaccessible. All of the remaining health facilities running in Aleppo were hit, some of them more time. People were facing situation, there was lack of everything. Lack of the fuel was leading to the lack of electricity and a lack of water, but it was also, for example, leading to the situation before, when there was a major blast in Aleppo. there was not enough of ambulances, and there was a lot of civilians who were helping the ambulances to deliver the wounded to the hospitals. But at the moment when there was no more fuel, no more civilians could support the ambulances with their private cars. So it was one of the consequences that the people couldn't reach the hospitals. By December, there was one more aspect. You know, how is it now outside in Prague? Well, the situation at Aleppo is not much different, so it was a cold. We know the city was taken over by the forces connected with Bashar Assad. There was an evacuation of the civilians. According to International Committee of Red Cross, the evacuation ended 23rd December. And we know that to Idlib province, it was about 36,000 civilians being evacuated. However, nobody knows how many people left to West Aleppo and to areas controlled by the government, and nobody knows how many people moved to West Aleppo. But probably we should be honest, including our organization, that it seems that the number most of us were working with, 250,000 civilians, was overestimated. If you ask me what Doctors Without Borders is doing now, we are present in Idlib province. When we know the evacuation will start, we try to reinforce the existing health facilities in Idlib with cargoes of medical supply, with more ambulances. We started the distribution of non-food items, winter kits. Basically now we continue to work in Idlib province. We are not working in the areas controlled by the forces attached to Bashar Assad. This is very unusual for our organization because our policy is to provide medical care, independent and impartial, doesn't matter on which side of the front line. But since the beginning of the conflict, we were asking the government in Damascus for the permission to work also in areas which they control, and we never received it up until now. I will finish with this thing because people ask me, what can I do? Well, you do something, you do a lot. But generally what people can do. And I will just talk from the perspective of our organization as a medical organization. Generally people agreed more than 150 years ago that when there is a war is always dirty. But there is a general agreement that nobody is attacking hospitals, their patients and their staff. This is something which is not working in Syria and in many other countries. We managed to even have a hearing at the Permanent Security Council of the United Nations, where our president, together with the president of the International Committee of Red Cross, delivered a speech reinforcing the feeling how important it is that hospitals are protected. The Permanent Council of the UN then again said, yes, hospitals are protected and nobody should be attacking the hospitals. This is the rhetoric. The practice is that 4 out of the 5 permanent members of the Security Councils are involved in the war in Syria and are actively supporting forces which are attacking hospitals. From our perspective, if we see years 2015 and 2016, I must say the situation was really difficult because our hospitals came under attack in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Yemen, in Central African Republic, in South Sudan. So if people ask me what to do, I know it doesn't seem a lot, but we can continue the appeal that all warring parties, all the parties must respect that there is no way how to attack hospitals and other civilian infrastructure. Maybe with the Syria, this will be my last point, the situation is even more specific because the independence and impartiality of the healthcare was not respected from the very beginning of the conflict. It really started even before the civilian war, when the government started to hunt the doctors which were giving the treatment to the demonstrators, and in fact it led to a paradoxical situation because under the Geneva Conventions and international humanitarian law, the hospital is protected once the position is known. So the practice is that the hospital is sharing its GPS coordinates, so all the warring parties know where the hospital is. But in Syria, the situation was that when the hospital did share the GPS coordinates, the airstrike followed. So now the decision of the hospitals we support is left on the management team and the directors of the hospitals, and almost all of them decided not to share the GPS coordinates because it's increasing the threat of the attack on the hospital. But under the international law, it means the hospital is not protected. So it's kind of catch-22 in which Syrian hospitals find themselves. I will end up here. I think there's really interesting panelists, and hopefully there is a space for the discussion. Thank you.
You have a few more questions. You mentioned the December evacuation. So I would like to know if the eastern part of Aleppo is completely evacuated now, or if you have any information that there are still people who prefer to stay, and how they are the conditions there.
I must come back again. To be very honest, we don't have the actual information from the East Aleppo. What we know that probably the city is virtually empty, but this is our suggestion.
Are there any other siege city in Syria right now?
Well, there is many besieged areas. We operate with the numbers that around 2 million people in Syria is currently living in besieged areas, be it blocked by the rebel forces or by the government army. When I was looking before this discussion for the data Red Cross is providing, they even estimate 5 million people living in these areas.
Maybe let's start and talk a bit more about the start of the war. What was the reason, how it developed? And I would like to ask Mr. Yousefi, how I mentioned he's active, he's one of the activists, his family or friends are still in Syria, he's in touch with them.
Each and everyone who is here for his interest in what's going on in Syria. And of course, thanks to the panelists and the moderator. It's sometimes difficult to summarize half a century in 5 minutes. I guess it's always difficult. But what I can say is that Syria was boiling for a very long time. Syria was under emergency laws for almost 50 years, half a century actually. And I believe in 2011 it reached the point of explosion, which happened like as another step of this Arab Spring that started in Tunisia, then it moved into Egypt and Libya, Yemen, and eventually Syria. Syria was practically ruled by one family under military rule. There was no separation of powers, no separation of authorities. Everything is controlled by a group of military men who can overrule even justice system. And people were actually dying or disappearing or being detained for indefinite time or even disappearing. I guess I said that already. Without anyone able to do anything about it. What's different in 2011 or the years leading 2011 was that the number of people who are unemployed, the unemployment in Syria reached very high levels. When you know that almost 50% of the population or even more are under 30 years old, you will know how much that is a horrible situation. People didn't have any hope in the future. When you graduate from university, if you could go to study in the university, you have nothing to look for, because you cannot afford to buy a car, you cannot afford to buy a house, you cannot afford to get married. The jobs are scarce, and the difference between those who have money, the rich, and the poor was becoming bigger and bigger by time. Add to that the fact that it was a totalitarian regime. You cannot do anything. NGOs, CSOs were not allowed in Syria. No political parties which are really an opposition parties. We had like a group of very similar parties to the ruling party, and I'm calling it the ruling party because in the constitution there was an article saying that Al-Ba'ath party is the ruling party in Syria, the only ruling party. The president was the Secretary General of the party. He was also the highest leader in military. He was also the highest political position in the state, and he had the highest position also in the judicial system, the highest court. So actually, one person is controlling everything. And that was the system that Hafiz Assad actually gave to his son, Bashar Assad. In 2011, people started uprising in different countries. Syrian people were looking at them and they were telling themselves, it's our turn. And everybody was expecting this moment to happen anytime, and that was actually what happened. Maybe all of you know that it started by some children or teenagers in Daraa, in southern city in Syria, wrote slogans on the walls of their school about revolution, about the downfall of the dictator. They were arrested for almost 20 days, even their parents didn't know where they are. And this is documented, and it's even admitted by one of the regime's officials. And it's even on YouTube if you like to listen and hear this official saying that the children who were arrested will be released. So in a state that arrests children, you can expect anything. And in the end, all this pressure must explode in the end, and that's what happened in 2011.
هو ما في غير هدف حقيقي واحد اللي هو محاولة يعني تعبير الناس هذول المنظمين سواء واللي المشاركين انه هن بدهم السلام يكون هو اللي سائد بسوريا لكل السوريين، وهذا شيء كثير عظيم. يعني انا بالنسبة لي اساسا هذا هو المطلوب. يعني حتى يعني شايف انا مثلا حاطط هذا الشعار واللي هو بنفس الوقت عم يعبر عن الثوره بنفس الوقت عن السلام، واحنا بالنهايه ما طلعنا بسوريا مشان نحارب حد، طلعنا لنكون كلياتنا احرار كرماء في بلد في سلام في عدل في مساواة تحت القانون للكل. فهي المسيرة أنا بشوفها مثل ما حكيت مرات ماضية إنه هي محقة وجيدة ولازم تندعم.
And I wanted to ask, what was the role of the religion in the beginning of the revolution? I mean, the differences between Shia and Sunni groups. If you could explain something about that. Thank you.
My friend Anna said I have 3 hours to explain this. I think I need 5. The role of the religion. Everyone might expect or knows that many demonstrations started from the mosques in Syria. Does that mean that it is a religious revolution? Not necessarily, because it was the only place where people can gather in big numbers and then go out to the street. And in many cases, our Christian friends, atheist friends, secularist friends came to the mosque, stayed in the mosque, Some of them prayed, some of them just waited on the side until the prayer finished, and then they came out with the rest of the people when there was a demonstration. Maybe you don't know that there was participation from all religions that are in Syria. We have even people killed, martyrs, like Basil Shahade, for example. He was Christian, and he was in Homs when he was targeted by a mortar bomb. Another one, which another two actually, one of them is Father Francis. He was also in Homs, he was killed. One religious, Christian religious man also in Hama, priest, was killed by a sniper in Hama. Father Paolo D'Arolio from Mar Musa convent or monastery disappeared, and we are convinced that it was related to the regime one way or another. I had many Alawite friends, Christian friends, non-believers friends, working in the same group that we started, which is called now Syrian Non-Violence Movement. People came from all backgrounds and religions to participate in this national uprising. But you have also to take in mind, to consider that Syria is not a Christian country. Syria is not a Buddhist country. Syria is, by history, by nature of things, has majority of Muslims who believe in Islam. And when, I think this is more psychological, when people are facing a life or death situation, they go back to their beliefs, the faith system, their culture. And of course, when you expect that in 2 minutes or 1 hour or whatever, 2 days, you might be killed because you already saw many people die, you start to think what will happen after I die, and there you will find religion answering, telling you that what you are doing is going to be rewarded if it was for good, and no matter what happens with you, you should have patience and don't lose faith. So it's natural for people to resort to their religion, to their belief, to stay strong when no one is helping. And that was the case. 6 months, peaceful demonstrations, snipers killing children, men and women, and I have thousands of YouTube videos if you like to see from these first 6 months, and no one helped. And that was maybe the gate or the door that was opened for those who cover themselves by religion to try to achieve their own agendas. We know them, they know that we know them, they know that we don't agree, and we even fight or fought them in many occasions. Syrian uprising wasn't a religious uprising. There was no problem between Shia and Sunni in Syria. It was for me it's like really more like sarcasm to say that there is a problem between Shia and Sunni before the uprising. And now this description is actually making things worse, not better. Why? Because until this moment, I don't like to describe what is happening as Sunnah against Shia. I have nothing against Shia. as a religion or as a sect. Nothing at all. But I have everything against those who are using this cover, describing what is happening in Syria, calling it a civil war. I think the description started being used very early when there were no real clashes between Sunnah and Shia, or part of the Syrian society against another part. That was not the case. I imagine a civil war at least should involve a group of the population attacking another group, and then the other group will retaliate, and so on. This never actually happened at least on a large scale, so it will be called a civil war. Besides, a civil war should mean that there is no Iran, no Russia, no Hezbollah, no Al-Nujaba, no Fatimiyun, no Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, no all these groups that are fighting for Iran, for Iran's interests inside Syria. And of course other groups that might be fighting on the other side. This is not a civil war, in my opinion. This is a war against the will of Syrian people who wanted to get back their faith. They wanted to get back their country. Their calls first started saying in Arabic, Wahid, 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 Shab Suri Wahid, which means one, Syrian people are one. You can see that but when you have the strategy of the regime and its allies trying to change this into a fight between Sunnah and Shia and portrayed as this all the time, and then you have groups, militant groups, mercenaries coming and raising the flags of Hussein or Zainab or I don't know who, and they are killing, for example, Syrians under this flag they brought. Then those people will start feeling, oh, it is a religious war against us. It's not, and it's very difficult for people like me to explain to normal Syrians that it is not, because they are witnessing crimes against them, somebody killing them in the name of Ali or in the name of Hussein or in the name of whatever. I still believe that it is not a civil war. I still believe that we should work on explaining this. It is not a religious war or a fight between Sunnah and Shia. And hopefully we will give back the power and the voice to the civilians who are the majority in Syria, not the fighters anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Youssef. I have one, I'm sorry, devilish question right now. You mentioned the riots or the protests against Bashar Assad, that they were like the start of this war, civil war. But right now they are mentioning a lot that Bashar Assad should keep as a president, should be one of the person who should be the leader of if there will be peace, of course, signed. What is your opinion?
Who is saying that Bashar should
Russians?
stay? Okay, I think Russians, they can say whatever they like. It's our country, it's not Russia.
If you compare how many people is for the independent country without President Bashar Assad, and is there other groups that are still supporting him?
Let me tell you something. If all of you here tell me that Assad should stay in power, I will say I am against it. If all Syrian people will say that Bashar should have a share in power, I will go to the streets on my own and say that this guy is a criminal, a killer, responsible for all deaths, not only the people who died on his side, but everyone. Everyone. Why? Because he put himself legally and politically in this position. He should be, if this Bashar Assad is in the end an employee working for the Syrian people. And when the Syrian people decide we don't want your services anymore, he should step down. Simple. This happens everywhere. Why in Syria this person should stay as a president and everyone is supporting him, knowing that he already committed crimes against humanity, and somebody is humoring him or entertaining him or whatever, saying, oh, he might be responsible for some orders. We know that he is responsible. We don't need anyone from outside Syria to tell us that this guy is responsible, or his group or his gang. It's not a question. It's only a possibility, and I am ready to accept it when I want to save my people. For me, Syrian people are taking hostage, all of them, especially those under his control, and they need help. It's not a political difference or different opinions. It's not politics. This guy is criminal. This is a matter that law should say its word here. Not, I support Bashar Assad and I don't support him. I will never support a killer. It's not a political opinion for me.
Thank you. Why are you helping? Why did you organize this march? And why?
Yeah, I feel a bit weird here on this panel because we have two experts here and one person who is not an expert in anything.
We want to move people, all the people, us, our friends, people who feel they cannot move and they cannot do anything, people who believe only politicians can. We want to move politicians to do something. We want to move Syrians to believe that we are moving, you know, that we are really with them. No, we wanted to build such a bridge of communication, because people on the march, when they walk 8 hours a day, they talk. In the evenings they talk, and very, very different people meet here. And after 2 weeks, I already see that it's working. That people leave the march and go home and do something new, are a kind of multiplicator of things. And I didn't know that the results I will get already after 2 weeks. I thought it will take months to see it, but I already see it's coming back.
I guess that's how it all started, that I'm, like all of you here, just an average European who couldn't stand just watching. And I strongly believe that we as citizens, we can do much more than voting for decisive people, that decisive people take decisions and we might not agree with them, and in between of the elections we have a right to show that we don't agree. And I don't agree with many things which are happening. I strongly believe that I have a right to go on the street and say that I don't agree. And I wanted to express that I don't agree, and suddenly a group of people appeared who totally supported me, saying we also don't agree, we did demonstrations, we sent petitions, we sent money to different organizations, supported different humanitarian help organizations, but we still feel we can do more, we have energy to do more. So we decided to do more, and we decided to make this march, which is a bridge, which is a space for discussion, like this, for example, because we would like to force ourselves, our friends, people in our countries, and politicians in our countries, and all the rest of the world, we would like to force to talk about what is happening, because I can't stand anymore that we don't talk about it, because it's very important.
Can you tell us what are the plans, where you want to finish your road, where you want to stop, what do you want to do on the road?
Yes, we started on 26 December from Berlin. The idea of the march was born a month earlier, so it was all very fast, very unprofessional. We didn't have time for organizing much. We luckily also didn't have time to think how difficult it can be. I'm not sure if we would have done it, if we would know all these things we know today. And for last 20 days we are walking. more than 1,500 people already took part in the march. Can you take hands up who already went on the march with us? Just that we see who we have here. Look at these people. These people went on the, this one too. These people went out of their flats, and sometimes it was -11, and they decided to do it. Yes, they decided to show that they don't agree. And where we are going to go, yes, that was the question. So we are going to Aleppo. Civil March for Aleppo is going to Aleppo. And to all other besieged cities of Syria, which is right now, it's like 15 other areas. Yeah, and nothing will change it. So even if today, in the magic way, everybody would be happy in Syria, and you know, all these things we are dreaming about, the peace, democracy, human rights, all this stuff would happen like this, we are still going, because all these years of the war, we cannot forget about them, and things will not change immediately. And the name Civil March for Aleppo, this "for" is important in this name, because we want to support the people, we want to be solidar with the people, and we want that all these Europeans also talk about it.
Can I maybe ask you about the program in Czech Republic? Where are you heading tomorrow?
Tomorrow we have a day off, which is surprisingly very important. Especially for the people who for the last 20 days are walking. We walk between 15 and I think 28 kilometers every day. And it's possible, it's not impossible, but it's tough, yes? And when we walk every day and then every evening we still try to stay with our topic and not forget what we are doing. Day after tomorrow we start at 9 and we go to Ricane, yes, I don't know how to pronounce it. Ricane, yeah, and then we walk again every day more or less 20 kilometers, still 12 days in Czech Republic. And of course it's nice that media all around the world are talking about the march, but what is important, I think, what is the most important for all of us is that you all guys join us. Because this march doesn't make any sense if there is 5 people walking and 10,000 people talking about it. If you really want to show that you support us, just come on the next day after tomorrow and come even for a day with us.
So thank you for inviting. When we are talking about the help, you are doing something, but I would like to ask Mr. Gruber, how can we help as a Czechs or European citizens?
Well, the answer could be one word: everything. It's very difficult to say whether to put first medical aid or food or security or protection. It's simply everything. From our perspective, if you ask me what's needed in Syria, I would say the biggest help to the civilians of Syria would be if all warring parties start to respect humanitarian aid, impartiality of medical aid, which is not happening. And because under normal circumstances, I think Syria would be the biggest operation of Doctors Without Borders ever. But due to the security situation, it's not possible. So it would be a step one. What the Czechs could do, it's rather difficult, because we had the internal discussions, because people were approaching our organization, for example, asking, is there any appeal for Aleppo? Are you planning to collect money for Aleppo? And we said, no, we cannot, because we can't work in Aleppo. We can't access people in Aleppo. So we would find it very unfair to ask people to contribute us for Aleppo if we know about ourselves that we are not able to deliver the aid there.
Yeah, exactly. On this I wanted to say something. We were thinking, like, should we support some organization? We got in contact with very different organizations in Syria and on the border with Turkey, and they told us, yes, you can collect money, but what can we do with it if we cannot access people? And this was what touched me the most when I started this idea, was that there are the civilians like me who cannot be helped, yes, and organizations, huge, very important organizations who are there on the spot, they cannot access them. And what to do, yes? Like, I will not run around in Syria and make the space that they can go with their cars. So we were thinking how we can do it, yes? How we can create the pressure to do something.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I would like to ask, what is the plan when you get to Aleppo? So what will you do there? Really want to get to the city, or?
What is the plan after you will get to Aleppo? You want to get into the city?
Yeah, we're gonna hug everybody in Aleppo. It's a very tricky and difficult question, and I also see that many people start from the end of our project, this Aleppo. Yes, what will you do there? It's also a lot about the way. It's very much about the way and about what is happening on the way. What I can say for sure, I don't want to put anybody of the group or myself in the risk. I also don't want to make troubles. Yes, I don't want that anybody has to help me or share food with me. We don't want to make troubles. We want to make these guys like them be able to help. Yes, so it's interesting that many people ask us this question, like, what are your skills to really help in Aleppo? I believe that everybody should do what he's able to do. And what I'm able to do is to walk and talk with very different people on the way, and to motivate them to get information and to question things, to meet different people on the way. Already on our way, first through Germany, we were meeting many Syrian refugees. For many people on the march, it was first opportunity in their life to meet Syrian person. In some town, I don't remember where already, Syrian people came to the market square where we arrived and invited us to their homes. For many people, it was first time in their life that they could spend time with Syrians. And this is very important for me. And right now, I don't want to think about what will happen in 5 months, because we know that situation in Syria is super changing. So we have in our team, we have the group of people who think about different strategies and different opportunities, what will happen then. But for now, the way is the most important.
When we talk about how to help these people, I try to always repeat and to remind everybody that we also should keep in mind the people who help in Syria. I'm sorry, because of medical, I'll talk again about medicals. But most of the help is done by the Syrian doctors and Syrian nurses who stayed in Aleppo, who stayed in many other areas, and they work under the conditions none of us can imagine. They don't have supply, they don't have barely anything, and they still stay and still try to fulfill their mission. It means to save lives. And just imagine the moments which is happening in any Syrian hospital. Everybody now knows that the hospitals are targets. Even it happened to us in one city where we helped to renew the hospital. The local population demonstrated against the hospital being in their quarter. Imagine, this is unbelievable, because they know the hospitals are targets. So imagine being a doctor or a nurse in Syria. You every day go to your work and you know you can be bombed and it can be your last day. So when we talk about the help, please also think about these people, because they do most. It's uncomparable to any of us.
Snažíme se tímhle pochodem taky aktivizovat společnost, aby se víc zajímala, víc starala a skrz ty jednotlivce dosáhnout i na politiky a na ty, co můžou rozhodovat, a být otevřenější k přijímání uprchlíků tady u nás.
But it's better to do something good than just even to watch the end. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe the last sentence or word that everybody wish here. Let's hope that Syria finds a path to keep peace and change for the better. Thank you.
Thank you.